Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this wonderful occasion. We are gathered here today on Father's Day, and also for those of you who follow astrology, it is a new moon in Cancer, and we are now in the summer season. And we are gathered because we're discussing the Odu of the year that was cast by Awos in Ile-Ife, Nigeria. We're so thankful to what the Awos do in Nigeria every year, the wisdom that comes from them, and the graciousness in the time that it takes to compile the reading of the year, to compile the verses, and to disseminate that information to practitioners worldwide to give us a guide. And a vision and an idea came from my sister, friend, Iyanifa, who some of you may know as Saru, who's waving. And she simply put forth the question of women discussing and imparting insight and wisdom on the reading that came down from Ile-Ife. And so for those of you who are practitioners and follow Orisha Ifa, Isheshe, as well as the other branches, Lukumi as well, you may follow the reading that comes from the year. And our Odu is Ogbe Otura, also known as Ogbe Otura. And we are gathered here today to discuss that, and I am serving as your moderator. My name's DeShannon Bowens. My name in the tradition is Iyanifa, Iwalewa, Ifashalewa for Sheena. That's a mouthful. We have a lot of names in this tradition for those of you who are newbies. And I am just simply here to moderate. I was asked to serve, and I said yes, because I, like you, want to take in the wisdom of the ears that we have gathered here today. And so what I'm going to do now is just share my screen with you and introduce our panel. And so if you can see, we have the title of today's gathering, Ears Reflect on Ile-Ife's 2020 Odu of the Year, Ogbe Otura. So as you see, we have Iyanifa Omotinue, who is also, some of you may know as Iya Joanna Hunter. We have Oloye Fayomi Falade Aworeni, who many of you know. She has been in the tradition a long time and has been providing wisdom to many people, not just here, but throughout the diaspora. And we also have Oloye Fayele Tayeshi Okumbemi, also known as Ayele Kamari, and I apologize if I got that second pronunciation of your name.
All right.
And then again, the person who birthed this, which is Iyanifa Adaramola Oshun Being Ifangri Loye Oyetunde, who we affectionately call Sarud or Iya Adara. And the Iyas on this call today simply will just refer to me as Iya DeShannon. And we're so thankful that they've gathered. So now I want to introduce them more fully. And I am going to start with Iyanifa Omotinue. Also, again, as some of you may know, Iya Joanna. So here we have her bio, and I'm going to read it, and it's here for you to refer to at any time. So Iyanifa Omotinue is the owner of Black Madonna Enterprises. She has been involved in the study of Yoruba Isheshe and Lukumi Orisha religions for more than 3 decades. She is an Iya Orisha of Aganju and an Iyanifa with a master's degree in cultural sociology. She has lectured and written on the many healing aspects of Yoruba culture and her experiences living and traveling in Africa, Cuba, Europe, Asia, and Brazil. And Iyanifa Omotinue is also a Reiki master teacher. Her latest book, which I am purchasing as soon as this call is over, is called My Journey to Aganju. And she details her spiritual journey to find a deeper understanding of the Orisha Aganju. And as a prelude to her comprehensive investigation of Aganju, she examines key Yoruba and Lukumi religious concepts and practices in their larger spiritual context. And the central contribution of this work is her extensive documentation of the primacy of the divine feminine principle in every aspect of the Orisha traditions, which reveals the inextricable connection to the sacred feminine and to Aganju. Find out more about her work at blackmadonnapress.com. Thank you for being with us, Omotinue. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, Deshaun, wow. Um, I am, I must say that I have followed everybody, mostly on this call, for many, many years. And I can remember when I first started my company talking to Yeye Fayumi about the book that I was writing and telling her that I was somewhat clueless. Thankfully, along the way, you know, I've been able to try as best I can to catch up, but it has been through the contribution of all of those women, you know, whose shoulders I proudly stand on. And it's just great to be on such an esteemed panel with women who I consider the forerunners of what we are doing today. And I am so glad that Adara has put this together and asked these questions. And I just look forward to a very lively and fruitful discussion. So.
Thank you, Modupe Ia. So next we have Oloye Fayomi Falade Aworeni, and she is the founder and senior priest of Ile Iwosan Orumila Mimo Temple in Phoenix, Arizona. And Oloye Fayomi has dedicated her work to worship, education, and healing people through the edification of Oludumare, Ori Isheshe, Orumila, Iwomole, and Orisha of the Yoruba people of Southwest Nigeria. She has a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. She is a member of the International Council of Ifa Religions and an adopted member of the family of the Araba of Ile Ife, Awoyemi, Aworeni, Adisa, Mokan, Ranwale, by the virtue of Dafa. And Oloye Fayomi is a member of the International Council of Ifa Religion and teaches Ifa and facilitates programs designed to educate people on the importance of cultural rites of passage. She's the author of a book of poetry called A Child Returns Home, and also co-wrote Ile Ifa International with her husband, Oluwo Ifa Kolade Obafemi, and has written extensively on the tradition of Ifa, its doctrine and culture. To find out more, her website, she's on social media, but her website is Ile Iwosan Orumila Mimo Temple, all one word. Yes, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Out on the slide, so you can see it and click and get in contact with her. Thank you, Yeye Fayomi. Thank you for saying yes and being here today.
Oh, you are more than welcome. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a groundbreaking discussion because women have not always been included in the discussions concerning the Odus. And yet we are doing divination, we're doing the work consistently throughout not only the diaspora, but throughout the global religious community of Ifa. So again, I'm very excited. Can't wait.
Ashe, all right. So then we are moving to our last panelist who is going to offer her wisdom. And Oloye Fayele, can you pronounce the second name so I can get it correctly?
Tayeshe.
Tayeshe, all right, so we will say it fully.
It's a new name from Galade initiation.
Ashe, so Oloye Fayele Tayeshi Okun Bemi. Many of you may also know her as a Yele Kamare because she's done a lot of writing and a lot of work. So Oloye Fayele has over 25 years experience in healing and indigenous knowledge systems and 20 years in African and women's traditions. She has a master's degree in counseling and is the author of 4 books and the publisher of 15 books. Yes, 15. Her latest book is Isheshe Spirituality Workbook, The Ancestral Wisdom of the Ifa Orisha Tradition. It just came out and can be purchased on Amazon.com. And that is the second book I am purchasing when we are done with the conversation today. She is the founder of the Ori Temple in St. Louis, Missouri, which is a global community of healers, spiritual mentors, devotees, initiates, and priests who embrace the ancestral wisdom traditions of Africa. Her Ile was founded to support individuals seeking healing and elevation, and they have a mission. The first is to facilitate healing and wholeness for individuals through self-development, spiritual enlightenment, in alignment with nature. And the second part of their mission is to be a vehicle for community healing and education. Her websites, which you can contact her, is ayelekamari.com as well as oritemple.com. So either way, you can find out all of the work that she is offering to the community. And we want to thank you for being here with us, Oloye Fayele. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. I'm the baby of the bunch. It is a pleasure for me to be sitting amongst my elders and my mentors. I am very, very humbled, but I am excited about this because it's time to hear the women speak out, and it's been a lifelong mission for me to promote women, and particularly African women's voices in spirituality and so on. This coming through Ifa and having the opportunity, and particularly as we'll see later with this particular Odu that came down, the importance of including women and hearing women's voices in this. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Ashe, Modupwe, Odupwe. All right, Ia. So now that we have done the introductions, let's dive in. We have an Odu, and we were blessed with 16 eshe of that Odu, 16 verses to come down. And the first thing that I thought of when Ia Adara asked me about this idea, and I said we need to contact elders and people who have experience, women who divine. And my first question to all of you is, given your experience with this Odu, either in divination, personally, how you actually see it show up in the lives of not just yourself, but maybe people that you have counseled and worked with. Given what has come from Ile Ife, what guidance or insight can you offer to those who will be listening to this conversation? So I wanted to start there because sometimes people who don't have an understanding of Odu may be able to have a better grasp if they hear from your experience and vantage point how it shows up. Like, was that question here is?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyone, I guess I'll start with the elders, either Fayomi or Omotinue, either one of you.
Okay.
Great.
Uh, whichever one of us want to go first, it doesn't matter to me.
uh, okay, I consider myself your junior, and the junior. It's always easier for the senior one who get to do the hard work of, we get to say all the easy stuff, and then after all of the juniors have said most of the low-lying fruit, then the senior elder comes through with all of that deep knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me. I think that Odu, as well as the abodes that we do, especially coming out of Ile Ife for the world, begins to reveal itself before it even hits. And so I believe with this whole idea, especially with George Floyd and others, as we know, yes, the Odu of the year came Ogbe Otura, and it was Ayewo Iku. And so I go back again to this whole arena of what has been happening all over the world due to George Floyd. And I find it instructive with this particular Odu that is so inclusive of women, and that the abos even that we were instructed to do to propitiate our mother's head, that here he who was a Christian, not knowing anything about Orisha that I know of, in his last words, calling on his mother. And so I think that's what I mean in terms of the Odu itself, starting to reveal itself before it officially comes. And that somehow he was able to come up with, yes, what I need right now, who I need to call on, who is going to save me as my mother. And we may look at it in terms of, well, okay, he's not here. However, I think his mother did save him, because his name is going to reverberate, I think, for everyone around the globe and perhaps outside the universe for quite some time. And I think it's instructive, again, to show the power of the mothers. And although it may be that this came, as I said, a yewu with Iku, I think the mothers are saying enough. They have come this year to help us. And, you know, albeit Corona and racism, which are the two main diseases I think that we're being faced with right now, they're coming to help us. And so in that, we should be rejoicing in that we have been given the remedy, and the remedy has already been performed, you know, for us in Iyanifa. So I'll just say that, and I know that others want to jump in here, and in the interest of time, allow that to move forward.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. I found that with this particular Odu coming out, especially on the heels of Otura Meji from last year, it was ushering, and which was also in an Ayewo, because we had the Ayewo of fight. And part of this is also the predominance of the elders of the night, the mothers, in both Odus, talked about how these negative issues are going to morph into something more disastrous if we're not careful. On the heels of what has been taking place in our communities, the mothers are truly saying enough is enough. But it's also saying and putting the responsibility of how to carry this out also on the heads of the physical earthbound mothers. Our job is to make sure that it stops. Enough is enough. We have to stop, and they have to listen in the sense of stopping the fighting, stopping the war, stopping the illness, and find within themselves the spiritual development that everyone should be working with and towards on how to save us as humanity. What, as Ifa people, we forget sometimes that our job as priests is to be not only gatekeepers, but the protector of our traditions, the protection of our children and our societies, so that we last and are able to pass this tradition down for the next 7 generations. We also in Ogbe Otura have to not ask for permission to save ourselves, not ask for permission to lift ourselves up, because so many of us are dropping to the background of, I don't know what to do. We do know what to do. It's to save ourselves, to save our people, to save our tradition, to save our families, to save us. And we don't need permission for anyone to give us that. We got permission from Olodumare. We got permission from Orunmila. One of the names of Ogbe Otura is Ogbe Jebbe. And there's a great story in that how Jebbe's house was the one that was completely denying women the opportunity to do dafa, to do the work. And in Jebez's house, Orunmila asked him, "Why are you doing that when my firstborn child was a woman? And I taught her and her brother everything they know. They know how to do dafa, they know how to do both, they know how to do rites and rituals. So why would you stop my child from doing this work?" So we have to remember what that is. And there's also other parts that Ogbe Law reveals of what women need to do, because Orunmila's major story in this is about that, about how it was a woman, it was the mother that came from the heavens down to teach him about what brings joy, what brings pain, and what is it that we need to do in order to have more joy than we have in pain. And that's our responsibility. So I think that this is something, this Odu is pivotal in making sure that we do and stand on our own 2 feet and do our job. And this is our job, is to make sure that we don't have any more George Floyds. We find the illness of COVID out of our communities because it is impacting African American communities greatly. Brown and Black people are suffering more than anyone else, and I want to know why. And we need to know why, and we need to eradicate that out of our life.
Shay, Shay, yeah. So, and I want to bring Oloye Fayele into the conversation. You both mentioned the Ayewo and Iku. There may be some people who don't know what that means. So could you define that just for, there may be some people newer in the tradition who are learning who don't know what that means.
Iku is the spirit of death. It means that lives are at risk. And because of the abo, when you do the abo is intended to reverse the potential negative effects of what could come down or reduce what could come down. We are in a fight, as this particular Odu has revealed, and that fight has to be fought righteously and with honor, and but we also need to fortify ourselves and protect ourselves and so on. And so part of what the Odu revealed is the need to do so, to fortify what it is that is, fortify those who are on the front lines, fortify our families, fortify our communities, and so on, and to protect against untimely crossing overs, untimely deaths, and so on and so forth. This is real, and it is not intended to be one of fear, but to draw one to the seriousness of what we do, that we have to think about what we do. We have to strategize in what we're doing, and focus on how to reach the long-term effects, which is something else that the Odu had spoken about in terms of establishing our strategies, to look at the long-term goals that we want to accomplish, not just the immediate effects, and so on. That is very, very strong there. As it relates to women, as Yafayomi has already mentioned, women are pivotal. And this particular Odu, it does talk about Orunmila seeking out the secret to the world. And the secret to the world is women. And the secret to the world, and whether or not we are successful or that we fail, is women. The secret on the world, we're the ones that have the ability to bring the protection, the wisdom, and the strategy to move forward and to be successful in this fight. But I also want to bring up really quickly that the Odu spoke a lot about, or the interpretation spoke a lot about calling on one's mother, and it was very poignant that Ia Joanne had mentioned that call, but also um, recognizing that our sisters, our wives, the wives, girlfriends. There are women who are mothers to the community, even if they are not biological mothers, that also play a pivotal role in this, and that it is not just to those mothers, but to women as a whole, as a group. And so all of these things play a part. One of the things that comes to me at this moment is a mama's prayer and is a woman's prayer. You know, we have the ability to hold our breast and to say the prayers and to cry out to Olodumare and to cry out to the ancestors to help us and bring down the energy of protection. As a mother, I know for sure, you know, our prayers are more effective, even if you don't know Ebo, even if you don't have any knowledge of this tradition, if you know how to pray and you start putting those prayers out, because we within our bodies have the portal to heaven. We have the portal to connect heaven, to bring down the protections that are necessary for our communities, for our families, and so on, to protect them from death, to protect them from dis-ease, to protect them from oppression, and so on. And so tapping into the spiritual power that we have as a whole, and in whatever way we have that, becomes key. But yeah.
Yeah, Ashe.
Ashe, yeah,
I
Ashe.
say, I say.
Wow. Already such really nourishing and moving words from all of you. And you've already started getting into this because Fayele, you started going there and talking about different, you know, verses of the Odu. So this goes to any of you. Was there a particular verse that really caught your attention out of the 16 that you feel it is imperative for us to really tune
Mm,
into, to focus on?
Mm,
And,
amen.
and any of you can dive in anywhere you'd like.
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, we
that's the
already
thing
know.
with Ogbela. I mean, there's, it's a, I know all of the Odus are big and contain a lot. And in the write-up that came out from Ife, you know, they typed up 16, but there are so many more that
Yes.
perhaps were chanted, that weren't written up,
Right.
and that are so, I think, uh, appropriate and germane to our times that we're in now. One one that came to mind for me was the short, I'll try, short story with regard to Oshun, Shango, Orunmila, and Ogun. They were coming together because they were all fighting a war together. And so, as the story goes, you know, everything was going fine when they were all together and they were including Oshun. But, you know, just as we know from Ogbe Otura, you know, the same is said, repeated in Ogbe Otura as well, that, all right, you know, they stopped including Oshun. And they would go out to the battlefield, and the first time they went without Oshun, or at least conferring with her before they went, they got soundly beat. Okay. So then they come back, they regroup, they go back out again, boom, they get beat up again. Okay. And so by about the fourth time that this happens, they were like, okay, we got a problem. And so, of course, they divine to try to figure out what it was. And they were told that, well, it was because they excluded Oshun. And so, you know, dovetailing back about fighting the oppression that we're now in, particularly in America, and fighting with our oppressors, I think what this Odu is suggesting to us, there is no way that we will be able to win the battle or the war without coming together with our men, all right, to enable that to happen. Because basically that's what happened in that Odu, where finally, after divining, Orunmila, Shango, and Ogun, figured out that, yeah, no, this is, we barely got away with our lives. Let us go back. Let us talk to Oshun. And regardless of whether or not the women are on the front line, as Ayele had said, it's our aj, it's our ability to send forth those prayers, that energy that is going to protect not only them, but us as a people, because that's what we as women bring to the table. I mean, frankly, we think of Ajay as being a wani yawa. At least that's what it's been coming down to of late. And we forget that Ajay is a power of Ashe, and that women
Absolutely.
particularly have that Ajay. And it's with that spiritual Ashe that we bring that is very special to women, that we're going to be able to help to keep our communities together and save them from destruction. So, sorry.
Sure.
I think we also need to piggyback on something else too in terms of protections of, as you mentioned, and we do need to come together with our men, our, and to be able to come into that. But I think we also have to address here in the diaspora, you have over 380 women who have been killed. How many women are missing, children, girls missing, that we're not addressing in media in the way that needs to be addressed. I think this is also something that we have to bring up, because it won't be anything left if there are no children, there are no women. One of the verses talks about Arumula making, and this is verse 14, that Arumula said his children will be protected. Well, his children are the ones that wear this day. So I have to ask, are we doing enough work in order to make sure that that protection is afforded to every child? Because every woman, because there are so many women with the COVID issue that have gone through domestic violence. Okay? Our women are getting killed.
Yes.
So it's going to be difficult to protect someone, when at the hands, the perpetrator is your own male counterparts. So how do we educate them? How do we get into this head that I'm not your enemy, that my daughter's not your enemy? And these are things that also are coming in this. If you're going to feed my head, feed my soul, my NEKG, then you're going to have to be able to protect my daughter as well. I have sons and daughters. Okay? So being cooped up and mad because this is happening, that is happening in the world, does not give us the right to hurt each other. And this is being addressed in this Odu as well. We have to find a way to make sure that our women are also protected. That my daughter can walk down the street and don't have to worry about a brother hurting her as well. There was a time many years ago that I remember, even the Muslims used to come out, and when women worked late at night, they would walk them home. They took care of us. What happened to those times? What made a difference in the world that a girl child was not safe anymore? Okay, so this is also being addressed in this, and it can't be overshadowed by everything else. It has to come in an equitable place right there on the side of it. Black women, Black men are being killed, but Black women have been at the hands of more death in this country by our own. We have to stop it. That's something that has to be addressed. It ain't pretty.
Yeah. Ashe, before you, because Fayele, I feel you, you're about to dive in, and I just wanted to say that one of the things when I was looking at the first verse and they listed the areas of oppression, I asked myself, and you just brought it up, Fayomi, what about gender? What about violence in terms of that type of oppression? And how can we get to what verse 4 talks about, it being the year of women, if women are still being oppressed?
Mhm.
So that was a question that I had as I was going through this and taking notes. So thank you for that. And Fayele, you jump right on in.
You know, piggybacking on that, there is another verse that comes up in this particular Odu, and it talks about how basically how we're treating women and how it can be that blessing or that challenge. Orumila was seeking to marry Iwa, Iwa's character. She was the daughter of Suru. And in seeking to marry Iwa, he had a taboo, you know, and it was essentially, don't treat me bad.
That
Basically,
was the
you
only
know,
one.
honor my wishes and don't treat me, don't disrespect me, and so forth. And so he agreed to that taboo initially, and all went well. They married, he prospered, and then he started to take her for granted. Then she started to be there, and as he took her for granted, um things, she began to, you know, look at him and, okay, well, what you doing? He started to be overly critical. He started to um uh um dismiss what she was bringing to the table, assuming that it was all about him, and so on. And so in that, she decided one day, I'm up out, I'm gone. I'm not taking this any longer. And she went home. And at that point, Orumila came home and found out he didn't have his wife. His business started failing. The things that were prospering started to not prosper. And as such, he had to go out and seek her back. And he had to go find her. He realized at some point that he had made a mistake, that she was much more valuable than he had initially realized, that it wasn't about her, that his success depended on her. And as such, he sought her out to retrieve her. And depending on the interpretation, some say she came back after he realized, and some say she said, nope, just treat the next one right. But the bottom line boils down to the need to honor, to stop taking us for granted. And I think there's a lot that is taken for granted in the diaspora as well. We have to address how the system, the same systems of racism, are also implemented in systems of sexism
Mhm.
against women, the same rationales that are used to justify oppression. If we're looking at the Odu and we're looking at um, advising on the oppressed groups and so on, we have to look at how they rationalize things, how they justify things, whether they justify their deeds through religion, philosophy, and they implement them through systems that keep certain those people who are oppressed at a certain place, and to not allow them to grow, to not allow them to have full say, to give the impression that they're actually being there when they're really not, when they're undermining. If we look at how racism shows up, it is showing up as justification or ignoring. We have the idea of those who have privilege versus those who do not, and those who tend to have the privilege and the upper hand often fail to see the impact of that privilege. They often tend to not realize it is at the backs of those who are not privileged and who have not had a voice, and so on. And so there's a need to recognize that. And I see that as a that story about Orumila and Iwa as a metaphor for also what's going on, or there's too many women being taken for granted. Iyomi mentioned the women who are taken human trafficking, you know, and how they can't do that without the support of key people. And this happens to be a systemic thing. systemic things using a women and taking advantage. And we also have to address those women who have also been proponents of the patriarchy as well, and those who support the patriarchy in that way, those who support directly or indirectly the sustainability of that particular system and at the expense of other women. We have to address those things as well. That's very important. They say that every 30 seconds a black or brown, high yellow, red bone woman is taken every 30 seconds. So we have to address these things if we want to stop oppression. We have to start with how we might be, or people might be, oppressed in our own communities.
Absolutely.
Ashe, Ia, Ashe, beautifully said. And just as we're listening to the Ias speak, we also take into account that domestic violence happens every 15 seconds in this country. And then when we're talking about the abuse of women and girls, it is 1 in 3. And so just to really sit with that, because when we look at these old dudes, as the Ias are talking about, we're looking at how it intersects and shows up in all areas of our lives. So if we want to live in the blessings of what this old dude has to offer, we have to look at what is getting in the way. So appreciate what everybody is sharing thus far. And we've already been diving into it, but we're going to keep on going with my next question, which is around what we're speaking to as African Americans. Now, all of us on this call are African American. We know that the practitioners of E5 worldwide is many cultural groups in different races. And at the same time, it's no accident that the women here are African American, that on Friday, June 19th, 2020, we celebrated the 155th anniversary of Juneteenth in the United States of America. And so given that, and given, again, going back to this focus on oppression for people of African descent who identify as that way here in the diaspora, do you all have anything to offer in terms of how this old dude is calling us to show up today as a people? So if oppression is a no-no, if that has got to go, we just celebrated 155th anniversary. So what are some action steps, in addition to what you've already said, that we can take to move forward for freedom, for thriving?
Wow.
Yeah. Some of the things that we ought to consider from a position of us being a collective. We all have our own temples, our own following, people that we're responsible for. Egbe is pretty much the work of the comrades from heaven and earth. And one of the things that we need to understand in this is that Egbe is also very strongly rooted in this Odu, that it is challenging leadership in all of us to stop, look, listen, and do your job. Know your job. What is your job to do? How are we going to do this? Are we inviting others from other elays, other temples, to sit down and have this kind of discussion about this Odu? I'm seeing too many people afraid to have a discussion, or they want to put barriers up of, well, we don't follow this or we don't follow that. Why not? We're in a crunch time where we don't have time to play around with our lives like that anymore. And I think that Ifa is saying, as well as the spirit of Egbe, that leaders have to put forth the effort to get out and inform people of what you need to do. Just like Johnny Appleseed, used to go around the country and plant. Well, we have to plant seeds no matter what. Some seeds are going to go into fallow ground. Some seeds are going to go into fertile ground. Some seeds are going to blow off into the wind, but you got to plant the seed no matter what so that the trees will grow. We have to not worry about what it's going to cost, how we're going to do it. We have to do the job of planting the seeds and making sure that irregardless of whether people like it or not, we have to do this because it's about our salvation. It's about our saving. Ifa has made it specific that it is up to the leadership. Well, I'm a leader. I can embrace that. There was a time when I didn't want to embrace that, but I embrace it at this point and say, you know what? Use whatever platform you have available, whatever resources you have available, teach one and not be afraid of what the repercussions are going to be. Put your big toe out there, no matter what, and say the uncomfortable things. We have these problems and we have to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have an opportunity anymore to just lay on the sidelines and not do anything. So I think that this is where we are now. We can't be stingy with our time. We can't be stingy with our resources and our money. Okay?
Yeah.
If I can pay $3 to see that food come out of Washington for, and make that donation, I can do it for something else. So we have to
For
make
sure.
sure we do the
For
work.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah, I think that's part, I agree. I think that's part and parcel also of this Odu. One of the things that we were instructed to do is to come together. Now, of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but, again, I would say ashe also for setting this up. Adara, because it's going to be with us coming together and utilizing, the resources that we have, and we have plenty. We have Zoom. I mean, we have Facebook, my God, especially myself, most of us are on there too much. But, there's a way, I think, of being able to make that work. And I agree with Fayomi. It's in planting those seeds, whether it be on forums like this, as I said, which I'm very happy to be on, but also on Facebook and making it count, whereby we can drop those seeds because we don't know who's looking, who's listening, to us and what word might be said that's going to help another individual, because that's part of it too. We can't help as women, we can't help anybody if we can't help ourselves. So I think it's really, when you say moving forward, what are the things that we need to do? I think that we need to have more forums like this where we can come together and speak. I think that also, it's like we are having to be responsible for ourselves, meaning that we have to keep our heads clear so that we know the direction that we need to be able to go in. This Odu, also one of the alias for it is Ogbe Otura. So, I mean, one of the simple things that we can do is wear white.
Yes.
Okay. Now, some might say, okay. But if it's something that's going to help us, if it's something that's going to save us, and we forget something so simple can be medicine, it's something that we should do, with regard to that. And in this Odu is right. There is another, it's not an alias, but it's no, mistake that we also know this as the Odu of slander. So there's no way that you're going to be able to come out, okay, or not come out and not have somebody say something. Right. It's the way that it goes. And, I mean, it's not like we're on TV shows yet where we're going to be canceled, but, it's like, this is the cancel culture. And so it's like, that's, if we're not if we're not out there speaking, and if we're not out there trying to say something that might be construed, I suppose, as being somewhat controversial, then, it's like sad to say that, we probably aren't doing our jobs, as Fiona
Right.
said, because the job, the task at hand that we have before us is not going to be an easy one. And I think, yes, Juneteenth was very instructive, but we made it through that. We've made some advances since then, and we did it together. And women are also on the front line here. I mean, there wouldn't be a Black Lives Matter kind of
Mm-hmm.
hue and cry going on were it not for the Black women that put that together. So, lots of
Absolutely.
things go through my head, is, like that, when I hear all of that,
Mm-hmm.
again, but let me stop here and let others jump in.
Yes. I absolutely agree in terms of coming together. What we've seen, especially in the Ifa Orisha tradition, are many people who spend a lot of time promoting division rather than unity. And in these United States,
Uh,
with this
Yeah.
Juneteenth celebration, we cannot afford to indulge in petty arguments and petty divisions, particularly among the our immediate communities. We simply can't. We can't indulge the Lukumi versus the Sheshe conversations like that. We can't afford to promote more division than we do unity. And we have to, because it's in unity, it's in community, it's in coming together that we can overcome. We can't do it individually, as the Odu has indicated. We can't do it in this little temple over here, in this little temple. And I
Right.
would suspect that it extends worldwide, because what also comes up to me is the Odu that was cast in Ekiti said the same thing.
yes,
For
yes.
at Giogbe, we can't afford the divisions that have been promoted, and the individuals and groups and so on that promote these divisions. We have to, in order for us to succeed, we have to work together. We have to find common ground. But also, in terms of promoting how we move forward, which is, what you mentioned. I bring up the Odu speaking about focusing on development in all areas: education, economy, science, and technology. We have to think long term, right? And we have to learn to, the phrase that comes, we have to learn to play chess instead of checkers.
Mhm.
You got to look at the long game and not just the short things that we get right now. I want it right now. We have to think long term, right? Because how does oppression happen? And those who are in the power positions, they think long term. They've already thought 3 generations forward, and we have to start thinking the things that we do will affect not just ourselves, but those generations moving forward. And how do we do that in a way that will empower our community? We have to own, going back to economy, we got to own our own businesses again. We've got to
Yes.
support our own businesses. We've got to support our education. We're moving in a world of global technology. We've got to be on the front ends of those things. Otherwise, we will be left behind. My daughter is a mathematician. She works for a store, and they're putting all kinds of robots and robotics into some of the grocery stores that are in the very wealthy white communities, but not in the Black communities. So the kids out there learn certain things early on, and our kids are not getting that. But we have to be on the front lines of STEM. The truth is that at STEM and the technology, it was our technology, EFI technology, binary technology, that laid the forefront for computers and the computer language itself. It was our technology. We are the mothers of math, from Ma'at all the way back to ancient Egypt and so on. We have to bring forth and we have to push forward in education. We have to, so that we know, so that the next generations can use their innovations. This millennial generation that's coming and the one after that, they don't play, but they do need to be guided. And they do need to be able to have the tools necessary to move us forward through the generations. So those are the things that come to mind for me in moving forward, planning far ahead. Let's come up with. We need 100-year plan.
Yes.
We need
200-year plan.
That's
200.
exactly what I was going to say.
You know,
Ashe. Iya Adara, she wanted to jump in, and then can
Right.
you go, Fayomi,
mm-hmm,
after Iya Adara?
Okay,
okay,
can you all hear me?
mm-hmm,
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm piggybacking off of what Ayele just said. We have to plan at least 150 years ahead. It is about preparation. A lot of times we are very reactionary and we keep being reactionary. I was talking to someone the other day, and the way that we're reacting is if we are a baby throwing our bottle down on the ground and kicking and screaming. We can't just do that. We have to sit down and think of a master plan. Implement that plan. It's very important. And in this Odu, it talked about planning. And planning is something that it's collective. It can also be individual. You can have your personal plan, but also there has to be a collective plan, and it has to be recognized by the collective. That means that leaders have to come together and participate. And we do not have time, as you all said, for the divisions in religion. We have to move past that so that we can move forward as a people. The other thing that comes up in this Odu, it talks about guarding against death. That is talking about, and with COVID has given us an opportunity, first of all, to sit down and plan. We have never had an opportunity in my lifetime where the whole world got to sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
So this is the
yeah,
time to sit back and plan. Use this time to really come together and think about the policies that need to be changed in the United States. It's not, we have to understand how policies are made in the United States. And then we have to have leadership enough to implement those policy changes. How does a policy take place in the United States? How does it move through the houses, and understand in order for us to implement our plan? So we have to go back and really understand those things need to be on the table. And then guarding against death, we have to get control of our health. We are eating improperly, we're not getting enough water, and we're not exercising. And that's another issue. I go out walking 3 miles every other day, and I see a lot of women out there and a lot of other men out there, but I don't see our men out there. And if we're needing that protection, that means that our men need to be fit. They need to be in shape. They need to be able to go the long term and the long haul. And right now, I don't know that they can do that. So that's one of the things that is coming up for me. But the planning is extremely, extremely important. And the other thing that comes up for me in this Odu is speaking in positive gratitude. And that's extremely important because our culture is oriented towards the negative. So we have to balance that frequency out. So it's important that you be in gratitude of the things that we have achieved and take note of those. And also to make sure that and this is for me, don't give up on your children. Know that you have put everything, you've put in all the ingredients in your child. It's up to them to make the soup. So we have to also stop bashing the youth. It's important that the youth know that we support them. And those are some of the things that I wanted to say.
Ashe.
Sure.
Yeah.
I say. And I'm going to piggyback off of Dar. Because here's another thing. We're forgetting that we have a metaphysical system. This system is based on pure metaphysics as well. We believe in our ancestors. We believe in invoking and using incantation. It's part of what we do. And part of the things that we have to embed into our people is a sense of honesty and righteousness as well. We have to teach what truth looks like. We have to be truth. We have to walk truth because that's how you get into our youth. That's how we get into our people, to be honest, to make sure that they understand that they have to be faithful in this tradition. They have to be faithful to themselves. They have to be faithful with each other. So we have, this is something else that Ifa talks about, not only the futuristic, but how to use this system in Ogbe Otura. Ogbe Otura has the most verses that really address everything that's going on right here, right now. It has all the verses that really talk about how to get rid of death, how to get rid of fight, how to get rid of illness and sickness, and how to use those invocations to bring those forces of heaven here on earth. We also have to teach our young men and women the value of what it looks like to do good divination, to be a part of that, to be a part of that educational system. If they don't know how, don't pretend to know how. Get some help. You know, get the education that you're supposed to do. Use your ori, use your foresight. This is something that we've had, and this is something that our ancestors have passed on to us from the beginning of time. This old dude in Ife, there was only 4 of the Orisha that they were calling on. But you have to think about, and that was I, Oromila, Eshu, Egbe, Iyami. Okay?
Ashe.
So we have to look at what those forces will do metaphysically and how we're to get inside that. And we have to teach that. We can't hold on to knowledge just to hold on to it. You have to make sure that when someone asks you and they're ready for that education, that you give them that education and not be afraid to say, you know what, baby, you need to do it this way, this way, this way, this way. Guess what? It will work. Now, I'm a little afraid, and I'm going to tell you honestly, I'm a little afraid about it, but like, I'm going to give you a shot. I'm going to give you the shot you need. Show me what you can do. And I can sit back and watch you do it. But I'm not going to sit back to watch you fail. I'm going to sit there and be that support you need because you are standing on my shoulders now. And that's what I want them to understand. We have to teach truth and know what that looks like in our children.
Ashe.
Right.
Ashe, I'm ringing the bell on that just because that just sound, that was all right.
In jumping in on that, as you were speaking, yes, there's a host of Orisha also that are up in Ogbe Otura. And I think one of the things that we forget about, and I think it also deals with the situation that we're in now, is with Obatala. And, you know, in this, I remember a story whereby Obatala, oh my God, and the bird just came to the window. I'll just leave that. But anyway, so I guess maybe that's an amen or ashe on that. But in any case, Obatala went away for 16 years. And do you remember that story? Yeah. And he was traveling, so on and so forth, and he comes back. And he actually, only one of his 3 children at that time treated him well. And isn't it interesting that during this time, during this pandemic, we have our elders who are in nursing homes, and they're the ones that's getting hit. And that's really key, because how are we going to learn truth, or how are we going to learn anything else if those repositories of knowledge are locked away or dying? Okay.
I say,
And so
yes.
I think it's really, again, instructive in this Odu to remember what Obatala encountered. And, you know, in terms of when he went to one child and it's like, ah, it's too late. It's like, you're
Mm-hmm.
30, everything. Now I don't want to be bothered with that. Second child, same thing. But when he landed on Sage,
Sake, yeah.
actually the tree that we use in
Mm-hmm.
Ifa or venerate in Ifa, that was a child that understood, irregardless of it's middle of the night, irregardless of whatever, he offered his parents everything. And I think this is what we need to also teach the youth, you know, and it's hard sometimes when the youth are also parents themselves. And so if we can teach them to parent and to appreciate their parents. And
Mm-hmm.
like it was historically for us, that, well, your parents are not just the biological one, boy, it's everybody
Right.
on that block, and you better listen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because if you don't, okay, auntie's gonna get you, you know, uncle's gonna get you and gonna say and just finger you out because, yeah, I saw you, okay, down on blah 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 where you didn't have no
Mm-hmm.
business. And yeah, you know, it's like, I told your mama, but I'm telling you now, get off the street. And I think we need more of that today because so
Yes.
many of the elders, I think, are afraid to say anything to our
Mm-hmm.
children. We should not be afraid of the children, anybody's children. They're all our children. And that's
Ashe.
what I mean by that. So, okay, let me stop here. That bird kind of caught me off guard, okay?
Yeah.
Ashe.
Yeah.
So yes, we are getting about to that time. I knew that once we began
Mm-hmm.
recording that we would get there in about an hour or so, and it has been that. So at this point, I just want to know if there's anything, any final point that you would like to share. Like for those who are listening, I had the privilege of talking to all the ears one-on-one, and you know, got to hear a lot more wisdom from each of them. And so you'll have to follow up with all of them one-on-one to get more. But just any final thoughts from any of you on this topic?
I really want to say that we have a grand opportunity for change, and we're change makers, all of us. And that it's a wonderful thing that we have Oludumare and Ifa that works through us and works through our people to make that change. It's reverberating around the world. And in my 69 years, I have seen some things, but I have not seen it like this now. And I think that this is the power that Oludumare and Ifa and all of our ancestors are pushing. I think that at the end of the day, I'm not going to worry about our youth. I think that we're really in better hands than we know. We just got to trust them. We have to trust the word of Ifa. We have to trust that Ogbe Lara is going to keep us safe for this year, and that is going to keep our children safe. And all we have to do is follow that blueprint. And if we do that, we'll be okay.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Well, I just want to take the opportunity again to thank Dara for coming up with this wonderful idea so that we would be able to have this forum. And ELAY, I have to say, you've done a fantastic job of being a moderator. It's just, especially with all women who can give, and I'll just put myself there, you know, for it all to just go so seamlessly and smooth, and for the insightful questions that you
Yes.
guys put together. Really, I commend you
Ashe.
for your efforts.
Ashe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ashe. I agree. I appreciate the coming together and Iya Adara's foresight and insight. She started with asking questions. Are there any women doing any of these interpretations? for the Odu of the year? Are there any women who are contributing to these councils that are putting these things out? And I don't know if there are or not. They did not reveal one way or another, but we know now that there is a need to have Ia's voices. There are things that we have to say that are important, that are relevant, and that are absolutely necessary. And so I appreciate creating space to allow just a few of us to speak. And I encourage groups of women, whoever is listening and so on, to continue that and to continue having those conversations. We've had too many women that are afraid to talk, that are afraid to speak. They'll say it in a small group amongst ourselves, but they're afraid to speak truth to power. They're afraid to trust even what they are given. You know, many, you know it intuitively, and you're not wanting to speak or not wanting to rock the boat or anything else. And because of that, the world is void of your wisdom, and each of us have something to bring to the table, to share, to contribute. And it's important and imperative that we bring those voices together, that we come and we share, that we affirm one another, that we uplift one another, and that we speak, that we bring forth what we have to say. And that's all. I appreciate Shannon, for the opportunity.
Ashe. Well, Iyadara, I feel like since you were the mother who this idea came forth, that you please offer something as well. And I think you can unmute yourself, and you should be able to, we could hear you.
Okay. I want to ask women to remember their contributions to society. And it's important that we remember who we are, and that our dark mother was carried all over the globe, and so was her technologies. Those technologies have sustained us, and it's important for us to remember that we are the beginning, the Alpha and the Omega, and that we remember that we do not have to ask permission. That when I started calling around and talking to Shannon and Ayele, that was the first thing I said. We don't have to ask for permission, because it's important that we own our own words, our own thoughts. And this is a fabulous tradition that offers so much richness and nourishment. It's also important that women are responsible, feel responsible to start these collective conversations, and that we are coming together and putting differences aside so that we can plan for the future. And those plans should be carried forth at least 150 years. So like Ayele said, they're not immediate plans. These are long-term plans, because it took a long time for us to get in this shape. Mm-hmm. So it's important for us to put the work in, put down the master plan, and then enact that plan. Ashe.
Ashe, Iyadara. And I just want you all to know, in terms of Iyadara, I don't even know if she knew, but the 8th verse, which I'm reading, it says, Ifa advises people, especially religious leaders, the priests and priestesses, to increase their responsibility of gathering people. And that's what Iyadara did. And so I encourage you all to do it in your own elays, your own groups, gatherings, whether you're part of an elay or not. And then just to mention verse 16. Ifa says we should not look down on any person. We should think more of quality and not the quantity in our endeavors this year. The divine strength of individuals should be our focus and not our human strength. So just to remember that if we want to come together, we have to affirm the wholeness of who everybody is, because that's the only way that we're going to go forward. So we thank you for listening, for tuning in. Thank you all for your wisdom. May Olodumare bless us all. May our ancestors support us and encourage us to keep moving forward. And may our Oris individually and collectively illuminate an abundance of blessings upon our path. Ashe, ashe,
Ashe,
ashe.
ashe,
Shell.
Yo.
ashe,
Aseo.
Shell.
ashe,
Oh.
ashe.